Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this colorful proposal scene I'd made a while back for a coworker of mine and his friends who are getting married. Today I'd like to add a special shout out to my friend Joanne, who just yesterday recorded me working on a new project and inspired me today to put another video out. Now, to make this piece happen, I was given a few photos I had to include in the final composition, so 2 angles of the couple and an image of their 2 dogs, along with the color scheme that they wanted to dominate the image. After I figure out which photo I want to use as the main background, you can see me playing around with the composition at large. So here you can see me laying out the elements horizontally versus vertically, adding more sand at the bottom to fill in more of the open canvas, and repositioning the other cutouts in order to try and find an overall layout that looks best for me. You can also see me adding a fisheye lens effect to the water and the beach. This helps with the flow of the image and where the eye goes when looking at it. This, along with the curvature of the couple leaning in, helps to keep the viewer's eye inside of, moving around in, and exploring the image. And when it tries to leave the image, it comes right back in, following the curve. One of my main challenges here is figuring out where to put the heads of their dogs, especially since the photo given to me didn't include their full bodies, so I couldn't make them prancing alongside them. I had to essentially work with 2 floating heads, so I knew early on that I'd have to get creative with some sort of extra element in there, such as a border, so I could include them. So right here, what you're seeing me mostly do is setting the mood via the background. I'm changing and deepening the colors, softening the clouds, and giving them more of a painted effect, such as what you would see in classical dramatic paintings. Since the sand and the ocean are mostly horizontal, repetitive textures, I could afford to go as crazy as I wanted with the sky. Not only does it offer a break from the sameness, but the upward sweep of the clouds point directly at the couple's faces, naturally leading the viewer's eyes to look at them as they wander around the canvas. If you have an outdoor background in your artwork, the sky can make or break the mood you're trying to convey to your audience. I wanted to make a beautiful and epic sky and ocean combination here for this landmark, monumental life event. This can be achieved by darkening the dark areas and brightening the light areas to add depth to the image. Here you can also see me adding the sun peeking out from the horizon line and reflecting across the clouds and ripples in the water. This adds a pop of yellow color that I can then use across the scene as a reflective shine to bring everything together. Now I'm outlining a flowery top layer design for my ongoing floating dog heads dilemma. Here you can see that I'm using that yellow reflective shine I mentioned earlier. It helps the 2 figures look more like they belong in the scene. Now I'm just going back to the ocean in the background and smoothing it out. Many areas look too wobbly for my taste, and many other cloned areas have a harsh transition. The smudge tool is perfect for evening out all those problem spots. What you see me starting to do here is smoothing away grain from the photos given to me so that I can use them as an underpainting and save time without having to build everything from scratch, and adding depth to the figure with a bigger variety of color and shadow. This is something you'll see me continue to do throughout the image to make everything look more attractive and cohesive. And here I'm just playing around with the overall hue and saturation and color balance of the image. And now we're back to smoothing the background water because it's still a little bit too silly. Occasionally we'll move from doing the sand back to the water and back to the sand again, but it does take a while because it's a repetitive texture and a repetitive motion, so strap on in and enjoy the ride. If you look to the bottom right, you can see that I don't actually use a lot of layers. I have the sand and ocean on one, the sky behind it on another, and the people on yet another, each person existing on their own respectively. I try to stay simple with my layers and work within them as if to mimic an organic painting. Likewise, the tools I use most are mostly brushes and smudges, because they seem most natural to me, mimicking traditional painting techniques. As I continuously worked to make the ocean look more seamless and perfect, I suddenly realized that the sand looks too harsh, too grainy, and too attention-grabbing. Since that's not where I want the eye of the viewer to be lingering, I try to remove some of its attention-grabbing qualities and smooth it over to a nice, soft blur. Now that should work better to maintain the focal point on the happy couple. Now I'm just continuing to perfect and smooth over the background and add details wherever I can. And then I move on back to focus on the people. Many times you can see me continuously sampling colors from my palette and dabbing them over the water and foam to bring a subtle color shift to make the image glow. Pinks and purples and blues are what I was told to bring out most, as these were the colors requested for the color scheme, but I'm mostly now focusing on subtle yellow for the light. Much like what I would do if I were painting by hand with a brush, I add the color onto the canvas raw and then blend it in. Yes, I do mix colors on my palette, but once I have the color I need, I blend it on the canvas. I don't usually create gradients on the palette first. This is a personal preference, and not everyone works like this. In fact, this is kind of the opposite of what I was taught. However, I was also taught to do whatever works best for me, so you can see how these old school traditional style art habits transfer over to my digital art world. This is why generally the smudge tool is also my best friend in digital painting. Now I begin thinking more of the subtleties of the composition and whether or not I want to give these two figures a bit of atmospheric perspective or not. I start playing with the idea of placing them more into the background so as to draw the attention to the larger image up front. I start playing around with the blend modes of the layer that they're on to see if they have something interesting to offer me. I find this type of play and experimentation to be very healthy for an artist, as it can open up new possibilities for your image even if you're already 100% set on what you want to do and achieve. Now here you can see me beginning to cut out and incorporate some of the flowers that they sent me to use to inspire the color scheme and mood for the painting. As I cut them out, I also begin to map out where I'd like to place them on the flowery frame layer sketch I made earlier, putting them within the outlines of the doodle that I made. All of the flowers they sent me boasted a wonderful variety of colors, shape, weight, and size, including ones like the first one you saw me cut out that were made to look like a negative of their original photo. Not all of the flowers they sent me were used, as I picked some flowers that looked nicely together, but were different enough from each other to really stand out individually. But I still made sure that they looked good together, arranged in a bouquet style. Also, not all of the raw photos they sent me were a perfect fit color-wise, without some tweaking. Whenever it made sense, I edited their color, the very color I was supposed to use to set the scene. Funny how that works out. In the end, the mood was set and everything worked out perfectly though. This included me both slimming the already body-conscious bouquets via the liquify tool, grouping some of them for emotional support, and scattering some of them into the wind with a bit of motion blur to symbolize all the places they could go if only they'd let life take them there. I can only hope they recover swiftly from their ordeals and adventures. So as you can see, following the sketch and putting these bouquet frames all over the place provided a bit too much flair. Working from the gone overboard look as the foundation, I began tweaking the flowers' general appearance in an attempt to make them support rather than take away from the piece, and provide a nice home for the two floating puppy heads in the complete image. So here, after I tweak more of the colors of the entire picture, I decide to move the flower bouquets outward so that they look like a frame for the image. And here, I'm just adding a romantic glow and blur behind everything so it looks more like a wonderful memory and not just a pseudo photograph. And now I start blending and smoothing the colors I laid down earlier on the large figures at the front, exactly the same way I did before with the figures in the back. And ditto for the dogs and the bouquets on the sides. Here you can see me move to the windswept flowers layer, and I'm adding the same yellow light I mentioned earlier, coming from the appropriate direction, to make all of the elements of the image come together. Here we have some more color smoothing on the figures in the front. And just like I played with the light source on the windswept flowers layer, I now play with the light source on the bouquets layer. However, instead of simply painting on the yellow light like before, I use lighting effect filters here in order to quickly and uniformly change the general lighting that hits the bouquets. Then, I change the glow that appears behind them to create cohesiveness with the rest of the image, as well as the dreamy quality I was looking for before. This also serves as a nice highlight from the sunset in the background. Here I outlined the heart on the young fiancé's shirt, placed perfectly between the two of them. I thought of a million cute comments I could make about this, but they all sounded so painfully cheesy. All I want to say is I hope they're happy and healthy and together for many years, enjoying each other's company and warmth. So here I'm just adding some finishing touches and cleaning up the background of the image. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this little video I made and enjoyed listening to some of my thoughts and reasoning behind some of the artistic decisions I made, hopefully enough to share with a friend and come back for more later. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.